Hey, Chris. Hey, Keram. And hello, Lisa. I didn't see your name there for a while. And actually, Lisa, we met at Santa Clara. So we have met before. How are you doing, guys? You okay? You enjoying this?
Good show.
Great ride.
Excellent. Excellent. I know this is a strange one because I've actually met each of you in real life. And most of the people, like the vast majority of people in this space, I know as avatars or as voices or as talking faces, but I've met each of you. I hung out with Keram in LA, with Lisa in Santa Clara, and Chris and I, we went on a crazy road trip together. So we're here to talk about envisioning the future of social VR. So let's do a very quick round. I mean, super like 2 sentences introductions because we want to focus on the meat of the subject. Let's start with Keram.
I founded the VRTO conference, which is in its 8th year, running the FIVARS festival, which is on its 10th show starting in 2 weeks. And I am currently teaching Blender for Web 3D at UCLA Extension.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to jump into FIVARS on VRTO shortly as well. Lisa, please tell people who you are.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. So Lisa Maria Wurzinger, I'm co-founder and immersive producer at Go Inside VR. I'm in traditional film since 13 years in XR, 6 years now. And we produce and create social XR live events and experience, and I also work for the European Commission as an external expert.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. And Chris?
I'm Chris Madsen. I am the senior sales engineer for Engage XR. I've been playing in the VR scene since 2013, doing various things, but super glad to be here, Daniel.
Absolutely. And people know you as Deep Rifter, right?
Yes, that was the, you had to sign up with that original name back in the day to be part of the forum, and that one stuck. All
right, okay. Wonderful. So I love my social VR, and I was really enjoying preparing for this panel. Got some questions for you. So first one is maybe a bit broad. And 3 years is a long time in this industry. I'm thinking 3 years down the line, how do you want to be socializing in VR? Keram. What would you want of that experience?
Well, I'm watching some amazing communities that are developing tools for autonomy and expression, so that you can have like in situ creation of assets that can be modified and everything else. And I think that given where we are right now, a couple of years from now, you'll just be saying whatever you want to appear in front of you.
Right.
And the tools will all be fairly seamless in that regard. I think 3 years from now is going to be a world we completely do not recognize. So anything I say is completely pointless. How would I like to feel? Is I would like to feel safe, healthy, happy, aspirational, inclusive. I would like to have some sort of control over my thoughts, my feelings. And know that generally those around me are equally well protected.
Kind of like you want in real life, right? You just want to feel healthy, happy, and that for other people as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Lisa, how do you want to feel in social VR, and how do you want people on your platform? Because I know you have a platform and you run events. How do you want them to feel in 3 years?
Yeah, we worked with a lot of WebXR platforms so far, and that's an interesting question, actually. I totally agree on that data privacy and safety and diversity and inclusion are like huge topics right now. So we definitely also like producers and governments also have to push these topics to have like a common understanding of how we're going to behave. And for me, everything is about like educating people so they can make a choice which platform or provider they're going to trust, actually. So that's actually a huge topic here, I think.
Yeah, I suppose because people's first experiences are quite formative in this medium. If you join and have a bad experience, might put you off for a while. So education is really important, and choice, I see. Chris, 3 years down the line, I know that's an eon in this industry. How do you want to feel when you socialize in VR?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm all about the real-time expression, right? And we've come so far in the last 8 years to where, someone like me that didn't have that technical training background, I come from a behavioral science background. I wasn't able to do much in VR back in 2013 in social spaces. And now we've got this ability to pull resources in from everywhere and create things pretty close to on the fly in real time. And as Keram mentioned, this ability to speak things into existence is going to be a big deal, where we can just change. We as the users have control over changing our environment and what we're doing in a place and bringing in those assets. But I also am really looking forward to this time in the very, very near future of, hey, Daniel, do you want to come hang out in my living room or on my back patio with me, or me come to you? We're right there.
Okay. I was speaking with a friend, Doug Hohulin, who used to work for Nokia, and he did research on how long it took to reach 1 billion smartphones. And then he got interested and he researched how long it took to reach 1 billion cars, microwaves, computers, video recorders. He did all this research. And then he extrapolated from his learnings what was maybe a realistic estimate for when we might have 1 billion VR headsets. Very quickly, what do you guess, guys? Keram, when do you think that his prediction was?
This week there was an article that was making the rounds and it was controversial about how Decentraland spent, 1.6 billion for 30 concurrent users. And then someone rebutted that, hey, if you're getting 8 users per $1,000 spent, then that is like a unicorn. And they look back at the Apple II and the Newton and everything else, and they're not so afraid about it. But I think there'll be some like larger paradigm shifts. We're definitely, I'm sorry if you've heard this 1,000 times today, but we're in the GeoCities era of all this right now. I mean, we're sort of pre-GeoCities. We're building these sort of basic experiments on what could be. Some of them look more samey than others. But I think that some of the talks I saw at my conference this year were about how to build holodecks. And we're going to expand out as we go through pass-through and smart objects and more IoT. And the complexity of our smart environments is going to modulate how we're even asking this question. And so what contains a user or what defines what a user is going to be a different metric altogether. I don't know if it's going to be about like corralling sheep into the pen so much as it's going to be about being able to trace who's even participating in whose IP, right?
Like bot accounts? Is that what you mean?
Well, I just mean that everything is going to be kind of online at a certain point. So I think your question was, what is it going to take to get to 1 billion headsets? But I don't know if that's the right question. I wonder more if it's like, how long is it going to take until we cross over some sort of threshold where we can't remember what it was like before, much like when the iPhone... Sorry. Well, I might as well be talking about Pokemon Go right now. But when the iPhone came out, it was like we did not expect the degree to which all of a sudden everybody's just looking down. And that's all that we ever do at any Thanksgiving dinner. And now we're trying to emancipate ourselves from that sort of lifestyle. So it's really a question about like, what do we even feel is the sort of world that we are going to enter and inhabit, and what kind of agency do we have in defining what that framework should feel like, if we will have any say, in fact.
Okay. The context for my question was, so his prediction was round about 2027. That's his best guess at the moment that we would reach that number. But the background to my question is, I joined VR 4 years ago. And the Oculus Go hadn't come out, so I was on my mobile phone in alt space, and that was fascinating to me that we could do that. In that short time, I feel we've had a rise of at least multi-user VR, like small rooms, instances, 50, 60, 70 people getting together, and I love it. I love that collaborative thing. I feel they're very quickly advancing to social VR. We'll be talking to somebody later who's got some very interesting scaling news in WebXR. But with predictions of 1 billion headsets by 2027, for me, that's not social VR. That is laying the foundation for societal VR. And so what can we learn from what we now call social VR as we race towards societal VR? Maybe over to you, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, Daniel. My wife stepped in. I had to give her some keys.
Sure.
Reframe that question, please.
Absolutely, no problem. I'm saying that we're moving very rapidly from just multi-user instances to things we recognize as social VR. And with 1 billion headsets by 2027, we might be dealing with societal VR. You know, what can we learn now? Because there's no turning this tank around, right? So we need to learn and adapt. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we do need to learn and adapt. You know, God, we're still so early in the game. I mean, I know that when, you know, we're onboarding thousands of people with our company right now, and a lot of it is just, you know, learning how to even operate in a 3D space and learning the protocols and learning behaviors within these spaces, learning how to operate. That's going to be a big transition for people to make. I mean, we're all kind of in a bubble here. We get that, but even folks that are embracing this whole metaverse concept and stuff, most of them have no clue or haven't even really tried VR and really know. They're still doing this on 2D screens. So there's, you know, it's that whole transition on how to operate within these spaces and the safety pieces of that, the harassment pieces, you know, all of these challenges still ahead of us. And I'm still waiting for that spark moment too, to get to that billion. If you looked at where VR is right now, XR collaboration platforms right now, if it stayed the same like it is today, it's going to take a lifetime to get there. We still need those spark moments where it just makes it so easy to just have an XR multi-user experience. Yeah.
Lisa, do you feel ready to start thinking about societal VR in 2022?
I mean, there are like many predictions, like also in McKinsey report or City report. But for me, the question is like, you say, when does it really transfer to mass adoption, right? So for me, it's a mix between hardware, content, and accessibility. And accessibility to us truly is key. And to have like this low entry point for the audience to dive into a social XR experience is key. You can't, when you're working like with the ministries, you can't make them download an app on Steam, for example, on their office computer. So for us, truly, when we're like producing events, we think like mobile first, then desktop, then VR, to provide like different layers of immersion, to have like a broader audience to join and to actually experience it.
Yeah, accessibility is a big point. When the government start paying attention, you know that it's accelerating. There's an interesting conversation about that we need regulation because it's going to affect society, but then the danger of over-regulating, right? And I'm quite encouraged by some of the progress I'm hearing coming from the EU. Any comments on that briefly?
Yeah, I mean, we're part of the newly formed VR/AR Industrial Coalition. That's the European Commission, DG Connect. And this, like you said, like proves that VR is there. XR, and there's a lot of things going on to foster this active system and also to provide like standardization on all these topics like identity and safety.
Yeah, standardization is another theme running through this. So this actually comes from a conversation I had with Keram in June in LA. I work with the Virtual World Society, and we're developing programs to try to bring the benefits of these experiences and the educational aspect to communities and countries around the world. And Keram made a comment that made me kind of rethink our approach, and leads to this question: how do we ensure that VR is social for everyone and not just an exclusive monoculture? Because it could be, right now, it's kind of almost an exclusive club, either early adopters or those who have the money of accessibility. If we're the people that define it for everyone else coming after us, that's almost like the what's the word? The colonizers, right? The British colonization of their empire. How do we avoid becoming a exclusive monoculture? I'll start with you now, Lisa.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we are shaping our future here, right? So we're not talking theory, we're doing social XR live events. And if we want not to be like a monopolistic system here, we have to work towards democracy, to an open, interoperable world here. And to me, like, for example, my learning from all this productions is that we have to include new departments. And I'm coming from traditional film, right? So I'm adapting that also to VR. But to have like experts on legal issues regarding this area, or accessibility and privacy, like diversity inclusion, right on the table in the beginning of the production, and have like a proper budget for them. This helps us shaping a societal new ecosystem when we work towards that together.
Yeah. Right. Going to come to you in a moment, Keram, but first, Chris, your platform EngageXR, and there's a two-part question. One, you as an individual, and then you as representing EngageXR. What do you think about that? Are the efforts you're seeing enough to ensure that it really is not just inclusive enough now, but let's say in 5 years we have 1 billion users? That's going to be people from all over the globe. And we need space for all of those cultures and communities and individualities. Do you see that richness developing yet?
We do see sparks of that developing now, but really that's going to be reliant on the platforms to allow that to be created, to allow people from all cultures and walks of life to develop, to bring their cultures into the space. Right now, because it still takes effort for development, we're still not there yet. We're kind of being boxed by other people's visions of what these worlds and things look like. So as user tools get more robust, I think we're going to see more opportunities for that to become more versatile and support all kinds of ideas and thoughts and all of that. So I think that's going to sort itself out to some extent just by that level of accessibility. And we need the devices themselves, whether you're joining in fully immersive XR or on a 2D screen. We need the devices to be affordable, because we are leaving out a chunk of the population just by the cost of the devices. So we need those to become more widespread as well to be fully inclusive.
All right. Keram, I know with FIVARS and VRTO, you're very determined, from what I can tell, to make it inclusive. How do you do that? And do you feel that it's anywhere near inclusive enough, the industry, the landscape, the people you're working with?
Well, the things that I do are my ideas about how to support the emergence of what it wants to become in whatever vector it wants to take. So, for example, when UCLA wanted to put together a WebXR program, I thought we really need to have some conversation about open source and all the tools that are extensible and available, and the code can be looked at. And, the reason I specifically teach Blender is because it can follow all sorts of edge cases that may never be of interest to a core subscription-based software company, because a team in Brazil feels like this feature would be great, and they can develop it and it can become available to anybody, and there is nothing preventing that from happening. FIVARS is an interesting thing because there's a lot of exclusion. There's a lot of amazing pieces that don't get in, and yet we also create a way for things that would never get considered through the traditional channels to get an opportunity. What are the conditions of that happening? I don't know. Sometimes we have 15 pieces about space travel and there's 50 about underwater adventures, and we always try to find something that's breaking the mold and introducing a new idea, because that is the value of an international festival, is that people that are completely outside of the cliques and ecosystems that are already there are going to present new ideas and new processes. And so that is what I always want to foster. I noticed that someone in the chat said, having to download an app is a huge barrier for schools too. Yes, of course, the thing about an app is that it's more robust, it's more predictable, it's more consistent, so more people can have a consistent experience. On the other hand, I spent the last 3 years with James Baikayanu, sweating bullets trying to build this WebXR system that requires no downloads, that has no buffer time, where there are no barriers to entry. You just need a browser. I do apologize to all the people on iOS and Safari, but you can take that up with Apple, because hopefully one day they'll finally come around. But the thing about that is, even this year, we don't need to necessarily be a hybrid show, but we did it because the value of having participants from anywhere on the planet be able to come in via mobile device, tablet, headset of any kind and participate is just so enriching. I don't try to steer that. I don't try to anticipate what that's even going to be. I literally just create a space for as long as possible. Again, I've said this before. I love the idea of the infinite game where you're not in a competition. You're not creating these walled gardens. Instead, you're passing a baton and you're saying, I'm going to run it as far as I can, and the next person can pick it up. And if I fall, they can pick it up. And the tools have to allow you to be able to do so. If they don't, if they are proprietary, then we're losing the work of all of those stakeholders, all of those people that have invested their time, thoughts, ideas, and everything else that could follow. So it's just a headspace. It's not necessarily about, finding people that are necessarily underrepresented, because in their own community they're not underrepresented. They are whole in their community. They're only underrepresented in your community. So how do you give them full power and education that they can take it and walk the rest of the way, whatever way they want to?
So that was kind of the backdrop or the context of my question is, we're building something within our box that we want other people to take and make their own. That was where that question was coming from. I want to go a little bit deeper into the what I call the possible underbelly of the metaverse. So we have the dark web, and as I was writing it out, will we have a dark meta world, a dark met? It's human psychology that we have the light side and the shadow side. Humans have a shadow side, and we see it with the dark web. Do you think we will have it, or do we already have it with social VR, the metaverse? Is that a real thing? Is that maybe something that the EU regulators are concerned about, Lisa?
Interesting question. Hard to answer.
Sure. But we are talking about the future of social VR, and I'm concerned about the future of anti-social VR. I guess that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth in that, of course. I mean, how and which channels like this dark metaverse will use, that's, I think, not defined yet. I mean, I was on a panel on Rebella, and there was a trolling attack, and I was like virtually sexually harassed by trolls just popping in, right? So a lot of things happening in social VR, and a lot of crazy other experiences. But also like this amazing experience together with people. But regarding the dark web, and I think I have to think about that more, actually. It's really interesting, yeah.
All right.
Which channels they're going to use, especially.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, the first thoughts that came through my mind is, well, define dark side, because, that's going to be different for everybody. Sure. I personally, one of my favorite things about VR chat is the craziness there and experiencing all kinds of madness and stuff. And sure, we can all agree that things like, terrorism and things like this is obviously on everybody's radar of, okay, that's the dark side. But there's a lot of stuff too that, it's letting people express themselves they want to be expressed. And so it comes down to that definition of what is dark. But we're going to have everything with the internet. I mean, the metaverse is going to, the immersive VR is going to have everything that the internet has. That I don't know how you not have. I don't know how you don't have that.
Okay. Good point.
I mean, identity plays like a huge role in that as well. So if you can like identify an avatar or virtual being,
Yeah.
So about this, one of the classes that at the extension about XR world building, not my class, but the students went in on a field trip, and almost universally the women said that was awful. They went into some space. I don't know. I'm not going to name a space, but it wasn't VR chat, but they were like, that was awful. It was weird. It was sexist. It was aggressive, and it was racist. It was all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Like Chris said, that is not something that you can eradicate from the human sort of social, especially behind a proxy anonymity thing. You could make people accountable to their handle and have to carry around something that is an identifier. There's all sorts of ethical concerns about what that means. But one thing I like about VR chat is I can just really like a space and then just make an instance of it and just say, I'm just going to make my own copy of this and screw all that. Because I also don't go and hang out in Dundas Square in Toronto, and I don't hang out in certain neighborhoods in LA just because I don't want to deal with it. I'm an antisocial sort of, or social anxiety type person. And I really like to have a sense of control of my environment and who I'm dealing with and everything else. Yeah. Yes, there's tons of ugliness in the universe. I don't expose myself to any of it. I don't want to know about it. I can't even watch horror movies. But I'm not going to go out and light fires across the entire universe because none of it should exist in my view in the way that it does. So, there are kinks and quirks and darknesses and weirdnesses, and there are perspectives and points of view on all of these things. And maybe there are some things that are considered universally evil, but I don't think that it's the internet and the VR developers' ultimate capability, the hubris of thinking that somehow we're going to control it is I think folly. I think
absolutely.
that believing people that their experiences are awful is absolutely essential, and that we must pay attention to that and not disregard it. But I think that in a way, just being able to make an instance of a space I like is power. Yeah, that I need.
It's true what Keram says. When I'm in VR chat or these other places, it's instances with friends and business colleagues. That's what I find the most fun thing about multi-user VR is being in our spaces, our group's spaces. I'm not a big, unless it's a special event, New Year's Eve or something like that. I'm rarely in a public instance as well.
Yeah. Well, you've just started off the final round there, Chris. I was going to bring it back to the light side and ask, what do you love most about social VR? And so for you, it's those instances and shared with people that you care about.
I love celebrating creators that are just building amazing pieces of content, and I'm experiencing what's in their mind that they brought to life. And I'm doing that with friends and colleagues, and we're building our own content. Daniel, I know you and I went on that road trip. And what's the first thing we wanted to do? We wanted to build out an experience around that road trip with the 360 videos and the scans and all of this. That's the exciting thing for me. I mean, I don't know if you guys are all doing the walkabout golf and stuff, man. That is like every Tuesday we're in there with friends and work colleagues, just having the time of our lives and socializing and doing business. And it's what I look forward to every Tuesday night, being able to do that, So that's what I love is celebrating creation and soon to be, just one quick example, because I just did a shoot for a car company that's having their car lot basically where you can experience their vehicles. I love that because I hate going out and buying cars. I hate going through that whole process. But I genuinely say I had a great time going into this 3D environment, driving those cars, experiencing all of their products with friends, just having an absolute hoot. I will do that every single time over going to a car lot. So those types of experience are going to be awesome going forward.
All right. We're getting switched to the next panel. So I was going to ask Lisa, I'm enjoying it so much. Lisa, in 2 sentences, what do you love most about social VR? And then we'll bring the next round of guests in.
To me, social VR is like magic. There's connection with people across the globe is amazing. But also, like you said, the community, the people who are all pushing these boundaries. I think that's amazing.
All right, Lisa, Keram, Chris, too short as always. Thank you so much,
Always.
guys, for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
And keep it light, keep it safe and happy for everyone.
Thank you,
And
Daniel.
see you around, guys.
Have fun,
Thank
Catherine.
you so much. Absolutely, thank you.
See ya.
I do love my social VR. I love multi-user experiences. Some of the best people in this industry I've met, I still only know as avatars.